Hey there, and welcome. Let me ask you something. You ever get your electricity bill, look at that number, and just think, how? I mean, it feels so simple, right? You flip a switch, the light comes on. But the real story behind that price, oh, it's tied to one of the most complicated, invisible systems on the entire planet. So let's dig in.
Yeah, so why does it feel so expensive? It's a totally fair question. And the answer, well, it goes way beyond just how many lights you left on. It's all about a hidden journey that electricity takes, and a global reality that, honestly, most of us never even think about.
Okay, so to get a handle on the price, we've got to look at the system itself. And we're talking about this massive, sprawling network that we all rely on every single day, but almost never actually see.
Most of us probably think the cost is all about what happens at the power plant, right? Burning some fuel, spinning a turbine. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real cost, the bulk of it, is baked into this huge, almost invisible job of just moving that power from where it's made all the way to the outlet in your wall.
So here's the journey in a nutshell. Step 1, the power gets generated at a plant. Step 2, it gets blasted across the country on these high-voltage transmission lines. You know the ones, those giant metal towers you see out in the middle of nowhere. And finally, Step 3, it gets to a local station and is distributed on smaller lines to our neighborhoods, our homes, our offices. And guess what? Every single one of those steps adds another layer of cost to your bill.
And this is where all those hidden costs start to pile up. See, you're not just paying for the juice itself. Nope. You're paying for the constant upkeep on thousands and thousands of miles of wires. You're paying for the electricity that literally gets lost in thin air as it travels. You're paying for the debt, the financing it took to build this whole grid in the first place. And yeah, you're paying for all the little inefficiencies that are just part of such a huge system. This quote from an MIT study really nails it. The grid isn't just one single thing. It's more like a giant patchwork quilt of different technologies, overlapping systems, and a whole bunch of complicated rules and regulations. And all that complexity, it has a price tag, and we all end up chipping in. Basically, the high price on our bill is just a symptom of how ridiculously complex this whole thing is.
All right, so we've kind of figured out why our power costs so much, right? It's because the system behind it is just insanely complex. But that complexity, that cost, it actually points to a much, much bigger question. What if the real cost of power isn't the number on our bill, but the price paid by people who don't have a system at all? Because for a huge part of the world, the problem is way more basic than that.
So while we're over here, scrutinizing our bills, worrying about the price of a kilowatt hour going up a few cents, there's something else happening on a completely different scale.
600 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. According to the International Energy Agency, that's how many people in Africa have zero access to electricity. I'm not talking about expensive electricity. I'm talking about no electricity at all. To put that in perspective, that's almost double the entire population of the United States, basically living in the dark. And look, this is so much more than just an inconvenience. The World Bank puts it really simply. Energy is the engine of progress, period. Without it, you just can't build a modern economy. You can't create jobs. You can't give people basic opportunities. Having access to electricity, that's like the starting line for getting anywhere in the 21st century.
So the big question is, what's being done about this massive problem? Well, it turns out there's this incredibly ambitious mission underway right now to tackle this head-on.
They're calling it Mission 300, and it's this huge joint effort to connect half of those people without power, that's 300 million people in Africa, to the grid by 2030. We're talking about one of the biggest, most important development goals on the entire planet right now. But think about it. Connecting that many people across a continent that big, that requires a mind-boggling amount of investment. So you gotta ask, what's the price tag on a mission like this?
$15 billion. And get this, according to the International Energy Agency, that's not the total cost. That's the investment needed every single year from now until 2030. That money's for everything, the power plants, the transmission lines, all the local wiring needed to actually get it done.
So why pour all that money into it? Well, because the payoff is absolutely transformative. The World Bank is clear on this. Getting people energy access is really all about unlocking human potential. It means countries can finally build digital economies. They can power their schools and hospitals. They can get their people ready for the jobs of tomorrow. It is the key to driving real, lasting economic growth.
And this is what brings us right back to where we started. Remember, we began by asking why our electricity bill is so high. But maybe that's been the wrong question all along.
Okay, let's break this down.
On one hand, you've got our cost. That's the price in our utility bill, right? The direct result of that super complex grid we unpacked earlier. But on the other hand, you have the true cost. And that's the cost of doing nothing. It's the lost potential, the missed opportunities, the economic growth that just doesn't happen. Every single day a community isn't plugged in.
So you see, the price we pay at the plug, that's really only half the story. The other half, the much bigger, more important half, is the impossible-to-calculate price that's paid by millions of people who have no plug to begin with. So next time you flip a light switch, maybe just take a second and ask yourself, what is the true power we're actually turning on here? Because it's so much more than just a light bulb. It's the power of opportunity, the power of progress, and the power of being connected to the entire modern world. Thanks for joining me.